Good afternoon everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. So here today we are doing graphing of radical functions. So we are going to be graphing using the method of translation. So if you are new to this channel, kindly like, subscribe and share for more. So the first thing that we are going to use as our example is so let's say we have y should be equal to the square root of x like that. So to graph this one, we can come up with a table of values which will help us. So we have, let's say we have x and y. When x is equal to 0, y will be equal to, we have y should be equal to the square root of what is our x here. So x is equal to 0, y will be equal to 0. When we put our x to be equal to 1, we are going to have y should be equal to the square root of 1, which will give us y is equal to 1. When we put x is equal to 4, we are going to have y should be equal to the square root of 4, which is y is equal to 2. So now we can conclude to say as long as we increase the x value, we are always going to increase the y value as well. So now, what are we going to do? So we are going to connect these points. So we have one, we have a 4 there. Then we have 1, we have a 2. So we have a 0, 0 here, we have 1, 1, we also have 4, 2 there. So we are going to connect our points. So our graph will look like something like this. So this is our graph of y should be equal to the square root of x, which will act as our mother graph. So with that, we can now start answering questions. So our first question is we have a should be equal to, we have y should be equal to 1 plus the square root of x. So how do we graph this one? So the way we graph this one, we are going to have, just as we did. So now remember, our mother graph for y is equal to the square root of x looks like something like this, if you remember from the previous question that we did. Then what we are going to do is we are going to add. So as you can see, there is an addition of 1. This 1 implies that there is a vertical shift. This, when the number is not in the square root, it affects the y. So meaning to say there is a vertical shift of 1. So this means to say, if we are to move every point, this point is at 0, it will be at 1. So the new coordinate, instead of starting at 0, it will be at 1. It's more like we are just adding everything. So from 0, it will go to 1. From, let's say if this point is 1, then here we have comma 1, there will be an addition of 1, which will be 1 plus 1 will be equal to a 2. We move on like that. So generally the graph will increase like that. It will increase like that. So this graph will be named as y should be equal to 1 plus the square root of x, while this one will be y should be equal to the square root of x. So this is how we graph by translation. So we are going to be moving, increasing how difficult the questions are. Let's look at question B. Our question B says that we have y should be equal to the square root of x plus 1. So how do we graph y is equal to the square root of x plus 1? So as you can see, the 1 is inside the square. So we are going to be having same approach. We draw our straight line. Then here what we have is our mother graph, which is y is equal to the square root of x, goes like that. Then this x plus 1, this is the same as having x plus y is equal to 0. Our x will be equal to -1. So this x is equal to -1 means to say this will be your new origin, meaning to say it's a shift to the left. So each and every time you are adding, it means to say there is a shift to the left. So we are going to say x is equal to -1 means that this point is moved to the -1. So now we have a -1. So the graph will be the same, but it will just more like pass like that. It will continue going like that. So this is our graph, but we need to know the intercept of y. But we know that at the y-intercept, x is equal to 0. So all we can do is we are going to set x is equal to 0. So we are going to have root of our x is 0 plus 1. We are going to have y is equal to 1. So this point is y is equal to 1 like that. Let's look at our next question. So we have g of x is equal to 2 plus the root of -x plus 1. So how do we graph this one? Now here there is quite something that is a bit involving, but it's not difficult. So now the way we graph by translation is that always your x value should always be positive. That is one thing that you must know. Your x value should always be positive. So you can have, it should be x plus or minus a, where a represents any number. So x always has to be positive. So if you are provided with such a question, you have to find a way of making x to be positive. So we are going to say our g of x is equal to that. So same approach, we have our coordinate like that. So our mother graph for y is equal to x will be equal to, we know it's going to look like this. So now this is our y is equal to the square root of x. Then we are going to attach a shift. Now this one is not just that straightforward. So we need to understand one or two things. So let's look at our negative x. So this one, if we are just looking at it as negative x plus 1, we have to make this one to be positive. So we are going to have, this is the same as the square root of -1 open brackets x minus 1. So this way it is made to be positive like that. So with this is the same as having a shift. Now the way the shift will be, it's that we are just going to get the inside one. We are going to say x our x minus 1 should be equal to 0, because we are just interested in this. So our x will be equal to 1. So our graph will start at 1. So if it is moved to 1, it means to say here is 1. So the shift will affect the x. So we are moving from here, coming here. So our new graph will be something like this. So this is, I'll label the graphs at the end so that I do not end up more like writing the same things. So now this is our second graph of just considering our y is equal to x minus 1. So now when we do this, what are we going to do? Now we are going to account for this -1. What does this -1 do? It's more like it rotates the graph. Yeah, it's more like it rotates the graph in the other direction. So this -1 would imply that we are going to have each and every time. So if you look at this value -1, if we multiply by -1, it will still be here. Our graph will go to this other direction, which will be something like this. So take note, if the negative is inside, the graph just rotates in the other direction. But if the graph is, if the negative, let's say it's the negative of let's say it is the negative of the square root of any number, then the graph will rotate in this downwards direction, like something like this, because the negative is outside. Now since the negative is inside, it's more like it just goes to the other direction. So that means to say we have translated our graph. I'll label the graphs at the end so that I do not end up more like making it more and more dirty. So now when we do that, we have another one where we have done the translation of the square root of -1 open brackets x minus 1. So we have to account for the 2. So this 2 is a shift in the y direction. If it's outside, it's a shift in the y direction. So each point, now let's see our y value here. Our y value here can be found by just saying y is equal to the square root of -1 x plus 1. Now at the y-intercept, x is equal to 0, so we have y should be equal to the square root of our -1, 0 plus a 1, like that. So we are just going to consider our positive there. So we have y should be equal to we have 1 minus x. So we have 1x minus 1. So we have the square root of x is equal to 0. So we have -1 times -1, which will give us y is equal to just 1. So this point is at 1. So upon establishing that this point is at 1, we are going to now apply a shift of 2 units. So each point, so 1 plus 2, it will land at 3. 0 plus 2, it will land at a 2. So the other graph is y should be equal to, this one is y is equal to x minus 1. Then also this graph, we are just labeling them. This graph is y should be equal to the square root of negative open brackets x minus 1. So this is how we can graph them. I just avoided labeling them in advance because I could have made it more and more dirty, but that is how we do the graphing by translation. Let's look at our next question, where we have f of x is equal to 2x plus 1. So how do we graph this one? Same approach. So we can make x to be alone by saying this is the same as f of x is equal to, if we factorize a 2, it will be 2 open brackets x plus this 2 will divide, so we have 1 over 2, like that. Now from the properties of radicals, we know that this is the same as f of x should be equal to the square root of x, the square root of 2, the square root of 2 times the square root of x plus 1 over a 2, like that. So now when we do this, we can now graph by our method of translation. So we have our graph is looking like this. Then our mother graph, not forgetting it, it's y is equal to the square root of x. Then from here, we are going to graph the x plus half. What is x plus half? This x plus half is the same as x plus half. You equate it to 0. So you are going to have x is equal to negative half. Negative half, which is the same as 1 over a 2, 0.5. So we are going to go, let's say here it is 1, so 0.5 will be here. So our new graph will begin from negative 0.5. So this is -1, negative 0.5. So we have this one, so it will pass like that. So if we are to account what the value of y will be at that point, it will be equal to, we have y should be equal to the square root of x plus half. At the y-intercept, x is equal to 0. So we are going to have y should be equal to the square root of, we have 0 plus half. The square root of half is approximately, square root of 0.5 will be approximately, in fact, since I don't have a calculator, I'll just put the root of 0.5 like that. So that is where it is passing. So when we have graphed that one, for which we have y should be equal to the square root of, it was the square root of x plus half. So we have graphed this one. This is the second graph. Now we also have now the other one, which is saying y should be equal to the square root of 2 times the square root of x plus half. So how will this affect our equation? So this one, this square root of 2, it's more like it's multiplying each and every point. So the square root of 2 is approximately 1.4. So this simply means to say each point will be multiplied by 1.4. So if you look at 0, this point is at 0, so it will be 0 times 1.4, it will still be here. Whatever the value of the square root of 0.5 is, if you multiply by 1.5, it's going to go slightly up. So let's say it will be here. Then each point, this other point, if I multiply like that, it will continue moving like that. So what we have to do now is join. So we have a graph like that. Let me just connect them properly. We have a graph of ish. Okay, so this is our graph. So we can just label them. So this one was our y should be equal to the square root of x. This one was our y should be equal to the square root of x plus half. The last one, which is our final graph, which is y should be equal to the square root of 2. Let me just move it here. Square root of 2 by the square root of x plus 1 over 2 as our final graph. Thank you very much for watching my video. Hope you would subscribe, like, and share for more.